By this point, I have already attempted this challenge in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, so you would think the next logical step would be Fallout 3. But I have decided to switch it up just a little bit by attempting it in Skyrim instead. So with that said, I aim to find out, can you beat Skyrim as a group? To get this to work, I'm using the immersive amazing follower tweaks mod, which greatly expands the follower system in Skyrim, but more importantly for us, it increases the follower limit by a lot. Just as a heads up, I probably won't be using most of the other features of this mod other than the increased follower size, as I want to have as close to a vanilla experience as possible. The goal is, of course, to beat the game with a small army of followers, but to make things a bit more interesting, I have also implemented the rule that I must have at least one of every available race in my party. Unlike in Fallout, I will be able to be more involved during combat, as I can heal my party, and if I'm lucky enough and find some spell tomes, I'll even be able to summon more people to fight for us. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. For my character, I felt obligated to go as a high elf, simply because just before I started to record this video, I learned that there isn't a single high elf follower in the entire game, so I guess it's up to me to pick up the slack. Helgen is an absolute breeze as always. I only stopped running to grab a few worthwhile items to sell to Lucan and Riverwood, as money will be pretty useful for the beginning given how many potential followers are hired help. Once I'm out of the city turned fire pit, I make a beeline for Riverwood, and as luck would have it, the very person I'm looking for is waiting for me right at the entrance to the town. Here, I can either choose to gain the friendship of Faendal or Sven, and make them followers. I decide to go with Faendal, as from past experiences, he is a far better choice, plus, if I want, I can get easy levels off of him thanks to free archery training. I give him some of the armor that I procured from the Dead Legion soldiers, and decide it was time to put him to the test, and where better than Ember Shard Mine. He is able to quickly dispatch the first two bandits right as you enter the cave with his iron sword, although, that being said, if I can help it, it would be better to keep him at a distance as he is much more deadly from range thanks to his archery skill. With this in mind, I start to make use of the basic follower commands the game offers by asking him to attack the bandits as soon as I can see them. This, more often than not, makes him equip his bow for combat. After the bandits have been dealt with, we loot everything from them and get just over 1,000 septims for our troubles. With the money in hand, we make our way to the Drunken Huntsman in Whiterun to pay the 500 gold required to add Janessa to the team. What's great about her is she has absolutely zero morals, so, if need be, I can quite literally have her kill someone for me. While Whiterun has a few other potential followers I could get, the idea of these runs is that my companions do all of the work, so I won't be able to win the brawl against Uthgerd the Unbroken to gain her loyalty. This also means I won't be able to get past the sparring match with Vilkas either to join the companions, so that's a whole bunch of potential followers I can't get right there. But that's alright, rather than being disheartened by my lack of friends, I instead took the cart to Riften and paid for the services of Mercurio the Mage, which I will go ahead and say right now was the best 500 gold I've spent this run. The man is just an absolute powerhouse with his destruction magic. With the four of us, we now had one of each elf and an Imperial for the cause, and yet, despite the fact we were in Skyrim, I had yet to think of a Nord to recruit. But then it hit me. Eric the Slayer. Rorikstead is a bit of a walk from Whiterun, and I would like to say that there were many fun encounters on the way, but to be honest, the only thing of note was this rather quick run-in we had with a bandit chief and some of his men, who were very quickly put in their place thanks to Mercurio. To reward him for his efforts, I gave him the armor of the bandit chief as a sort of trophy to wear. Making our way into Rorikstead, I start the short quest to help Eric by talking with him, and then giving his father an absolute paltry amount of gold to go buy his son armor. Honestly, he will be very lucky if he can even get a good set of boots with that amount. I can't recruit Eric just yet, however, as I need to leave and come back for enough time to pass, so that he may actually change from Eric to Eric the Slayer. To kill some time, I head to Dawnstar and wait around for the Khajiit caravans to show up, so that I can meet Karjo and offer my help to retrieve his moon amulet, which is thankfully just 2 minutes down the road at Fort Fellhammer. Considering we were attacking a fort, I was prepared for a decent amount of bandits to fight, but in the end, there was only 3 of them. 2 outside that perished in Mercurio's artillery, and then the bandit chief inside, who yes, put up a better fight, but couldn't stand up to the power of friendship. I then grabbed the amulet and met back up with Karjo, who was in Riften, and once he was part of the crew, I returned to Rorikstead to bring Eric into the fold. With a party of 5, 6 if you count me, it wouldn't be long until I rounded out the main team. The last few races I need don't have as many options, so I'm quite limited with who to get. I start off by heading to Markarth to ignore a murder and head to the Silverblood Inn to offer ale to this Breton Kosnak and gain my easiest companion yet. One of the reasons we came to Markarth, other than Kosnak I mean, is because Markarth is fairly close to an orc stronghold that once I gain entry will allow me to get one of the few orc friends that the game offers. Just outside the stronghold we get into a scuffle with some saber cats in which I notice my followers teleport to me a lot more than they usually would in a normal playthrough of Skyrim. I'm going to assume that this has something to do with the mod. Granted, I'm not complaining, it makes my job a lot easier if I don't have to constantly babysit them when running and jumping off of cliffs. Just outside the fort, I have a nice chat with a sentient piece of wood that informs me that its orc masters will not let me into the stronghold unless I help them out by bringing them the Forge Master's fingers. Thanks to Skyrim's never-ending raiding quest system, coupled with the fact that I haven't marked a lot of locations yet, the quest just has my group assaulting some nearby Forsworn to get the magical fingers. They do such a good job cleaning up the Forsworn outside that I decided to give Janessa one of the headdresses as a job well done. Things are a little dicey for me in the cave where the gauntlets are, as by this point there are so many of us that we tend to get stuck in narrow hallways, but thankfully Eric was able to do what he does best and save the day. With the mystical walls of the stronghold pleased, I'm able to make my way to Borgak the Steelheart, throw money at her, and just like that, all I need is a red guard and an Argonian. Okay, so there are only 2 red guards in Skyrim that will actually follow you. One of them is a housecarl, so like hell I'm doing all those prerequisites, and the other is the Solitude Headsman. Can't complain with that display of violence, he will fit in with the rest of the crew perfectly. As Skyrim runs on a give and receive system, Attar will only join us when we help him with a small pirate problem as he accidentally let their leader escape from the castle's dungeons. The place in question is Broken Oar Grotto, the same cave you'll end up in if you help Jari Ra with his Lighthouse terrorist attack mission. You know, I expected that having this many followers would just be an absolute cluster of swinging steel as they all swung their weapons at a single target. But instead, most of the time they switch to their bows and become a very effective firing squad. I'm bringing this up so you can understand that I was quite happy to see them all just dogpile Captain Harger as he gets the prison shank treatment. Speaking of prison, I head back to Castle Dar to get my reward from Attar, and now he can join us with no strings attached. Let's just hope the capital can make do without its headsman and jailer for now. All this leaves now is for us to get an Argonian, and lucky for me, there's only a single one in the game, so it was time to journey to Darkwater Pass and get the final member of the main team. Trying to get there was a little difficult, mainly because I decided to tackle it from the east side and had to make my way down the side of the mountain, with varying results. It wasn't just me having issues, my followers did not seem to be having the best time with this rock climbing exercise either. Once I safely made my way to the cave entrance and found my way inside, I had to contend with the Falmer and their weird dogs. I thought I was going to die, but then once more my companions teleported in to save the day, although some of them did not know the meaning of the term personal space. To be honest, I was purposely leaving Dirkethis till the end as I wasn't sure how they would fare against the Falmer, as they can be quite deadly at a low level. Turns out that I may have been worried for nothing because once more, teamwork makes the dream work as they clear out the caves and we can save our scaly friend. With a fully diverse team now whole, I could begin to set my sights on other objectives, and the first thing I decided was to go into the Ratways to get the chef's hat. Because of course. As a quick reminder, this is the anniversary version of Skyrim, so the world is littered with items from Creation Club. One such item is the elemental arrows, which I somehow had some in my inventory and gave them to Dirkethis so his arrows could have a bit more flair to them. This turned out to be a terrible idea in close quarters because as soon as we entered the tunnels, he ended up killing me due to their AoE damage. Attempt number 2 and I just take them back and we're able to cut through the homeless beggars and maniacs with little issue. I've never actually been down in the vaults before you're meant to meet Esbern, so I paid him a visit and to my surprise, he will actually open the hatch and say a few things to you if you keep trying to talk to him. Back to why we are here though, I have the team take out the crazy old cook, and once I receive the hat, I give it to our newest member. Why? Just look at him. Right, so next I was going to talk about recruiting Vigilance and Miko, 2 of the dogs you can get in the game. But, to make a long story short, I ended up not using them for very long, as Mercurio would constantly hit them with his fireballs, which would then cause them to aggro on him indefinitely unless I loaded back. So in the end, I just decided against actually bringing them. I may make a video focusing on beating the game with just dogs somewhere down the line though, who knows. However, to make up for the lack of animals in the group, I once more returned to Markarth and purchased the Dwarven Mudcrab. As far as I can tell, he's a pacifist and won't fight, much like myself, but that's okay, he can still come along for the journey. Now that I'm the leader of a small mercenary company, I wanted to put them to the test fighting a dragon. But, to do that, I would need to progress to that part of the story, so for now I was off to Bleak Falls Barrow for some fun. The first 2 bandits got slaughtered almost as soon as we entered, but truthfully, no one was more worse off than this poor ceramic urn pot thing. As for the giant frostbite spider, well, other than spitting at me, it didn't accomplish a whole lot of anything. In fact, they killed it so fast, he somehow managed to defy the laws of physics and phased right through the bars. The most difficult part of this dungeon was just trying to get past a giant metal door trap that usually takes out Arvel, as despite all of their combined might, they don't really have a single brain cell to share amongst themselves. At the very end, the Overlord dies before he can even assess the situation, and then I give the nearby helmet I looted and his sword to Eric for a job well done, as I think he may have been the one to land the killing blow, but I'm honestly not quite sure. With all that out of the way, it's time to become Dragon Slayers. Although, right before making our way to do so, an opportunity presented itself that I just couldn't ignore. Do you remember what I said earlier about Janessa and her lack of a moral compass? Well, I ordered her to attack Nazim, and it couldn't have went better. Facing off against Murmelnir just made me feel bad for any other dragon that crosses paths with us later on, as he's just pelted with a never-ending volley of arrows that whittles down his entire health bar in less than a minute of the fight starting. There was no way to know for certain who landed the final shot, so I just took the guard helmet from the dragon's stomach and slapped it on Athar's head for a job well done. Returning to the Jarl, he offers me the best gift of all, another soldier in the form of Lydia. Sure, I already have one of each race, but at this stage I don't think there's any harm in adding more people to our ranks here and there. Continuing with the story path, we make our way up the not so 7,000 steps, which was a bit more of a hassle than usual due to the fact the group kept spawning in front of me every couple of minutes and not always in the best situations. One situation they did improve on, however, was dealing with the frost troll that always waits for you near the end of the journey. To give credit where credit is due, the troll has clearly been playing a lot of Halo lately, as the man's strafing game was on point when it came to avoiding all the volley of arrows that were heading his way. Unlucky for him though, once he closed the gap, he was no match for the pincer attack of Atar and Lydia along with the range support from MVP Mercurio. When it comes to learning the wisdom of the Greybeards by this point, I usually just breeze right past this segment as it's always the same. This time though, it seemed my friends wanted to get in on the learning experience as some of them started praying or chanting in the centre of the room during my lessons. Making our way to Ustengrav, the necromancers at the entrance had clearly heard of our fighting prowess as they too tried to battle with the power of friendship. Sadly for them, however, we aren't a bunch of brain-dead zombies all the time and could easily gain the upper hand in the conflict. The Draugr and skeletons are really no more threatening than those we encountered in Bleak Falls Barrow, so I will stop talking about them now and instead move on to the fight between my followers and Mirax. Considering the fact we outnumbered them 5-1, it should shock no one that we came out on top during the scuffle. It was between Eric and Karstaag who got the final hit in the second cultist, but I already have a suit of armour planned for Eric, so I made the decision to just let Karstaag take the mask this time. Plus, it helps him stand out just a little bit more in the group, which is always nice. Next up is the dragon at Kyne's Grove, of course. And not to undersell the fight or anything, but trying to navigate out of Delphine's basement was probably more difficult than the upcoming dragon battle. Things start off a little concerning when no one will actually attack the thing, but he very quickly makes his intentions known and then the fight can begin proper. Lydia was smart enough to act as bait by moving away from the group and attacking from the nearby trees, which allowed Salokunir to focus on her while the rest of the crew focused their arrows on his right hand side. He eventually realised what was going on as he tried to fly away, but unfortunately for him, the damage had already been done, so when he came back around, he crashed into his own grave, both figuratively and literally. To congratulate the team for their efforts, Borgak T-posed back at the Sleeping Giant Inn, which certainly helped to lift everyone's spirits. Next up was the Thalmor Embassy, and for once I'd actually thought about this ahead of time, and as such, this was one of the other reasons I'd chosen a High Elf at the beginning, because if I could get a set of hooded Thalmor robes, I could just walk my way right to the dungeon. Well, before handing my nothing to Malborn, I recruited Belrand to the cause, and then prepared to hatch my master plan. Or so I thought. See, I hadn't actually acquired any hooded robes up to this point, and was relying on the set in the next room once you make your way through the kitchen section. The problem is, they aren't the hooded version, and as such, the guards still attack me on sight. I was ready to load back, but then once again my gang honed in on my position and warped into the embassy to save the day. This pretty much confirms that this is a side effect of the mod, as I know for a fact that your followers are not meant to be able to get into the embassy at all. Not that I really care, it certainly makes the rest of this section a breeze and more fitting for the video. Despite all of my efforts in overcompensating manpower, I still failed to save Malborn from the Thalmor. Although this time we may have been a part of the problem as the sheer number of us kind of blocked his only escape. Now it's back to Riverwood, and then for the first time I can say the phrase, and then we had to return to the Ratways, as this is the only time I would willingly go down there twice in a single video. As we fought our way through earlier, there isn't a lot different that happens this time, other than Atar inviting himself into Esbern's to cook some stew. Alduin's incomprehensible wall is up next, but on the way I made a quick stop at the Four Skull Lookout to make good on what I said earlier about that new armour for Eric the Slayer. This is another Creation Club enhanced area, as while from the outset it just looks like your run-of-the-mill bandits, once you, or your small army of bloodthirsty minions, disposes of the bandits inside the structure, you will find both the normal and reforged sets of the Crusader armour. Naturally, I give Eric the heavy armoured Crusader set along with the enchanted sword and shield, and then, since he has contributed to most of the team's overall damage, I let Mercurio don the reforged set. We aren't finished with Fashion Souls just yet, as after I sliced right through my nice gloves to open the magic face door, we can enter Skyhaven Temple, where inside I grab Dragonbane, along with a suit of Blades armour that I give to Faendal, as the man has been with me since day one, and it is high time he gets an upgrade. Delphine's hatred for the torch is thankfully behind her, so she doesn't screw me over here, and now I can begin to make my way up to Parthenax. Or at least I normally would, but I actually hadn't acquired the Elder Scroll yet, which is strange for me as I tend to grab it near the beginning of most of my playthroughs just to get it over and done with. Making my way to Colonel Campbell is easy enough. The same can be said for the descent into madness that is willingly making my way towards Blackreach, as I have done it more than enough times. Switching things up just a little, I let the fighting force have some fun and test their mettle by having them go up against some Falmor and a Centurion. The Centurion, while the toughest foe they have probably fought yet, still was no match for their combined might. Plus, I think he may have been trying to hit the Dwarven Mudcrab for some reason, so that didn't really help him out all that much. Their bloodlust wasn't satiated just yet though, so I allowed them to eviscerate Sulla and Umana, the latter of which is armor and shield I give to Borgak for reasons I suppose. At this point, not much can stop them, so I even let them fight against the secret dragon down in Blackreach. Honestly, may as well change his name to Eric the Dragon Slayer, as besides my healing, he was pretty much able to solo the dragon by himself. I then grabbed the scroll, we all go through the Greybeard's initiation as a family, meet up with Parthenax, and then prepared to fight Alduin. Here's the full first fight for those that are curious. Okay, so clearly the end battle is going to also be a walk in the park, as let's not kid ourselves, they are going to glitch themselves into Sovngarde somehow, just like they did with the embassy. So, before heading to the end, I went to Raiden Rock to not only recruit Teldrin Sero, but also to see exactly what would happen if we tried to fight Karstaag, who is arguably the most difficult boss in the game. Well, it goes about as well as I'd hoped. And by that, I mean he straight up kills most of them within seconds, and any that don't immediately get turned into pancakes go down after standing next to him for a few seconds due to his Frostcloak spell. I attempted this a few more times, and even on the try where they were able to do a good chunk of damage, their combined DPS just wasn't enough to keep up with his health regen once he started knocking people out. If I recall correctly, Karstaag is around level 90, so if I wanted to stand a chance, I could just grind out levels of Fendal's archery training and the Conjuration Soul Trap glitch. But I'm not going to do that, as all that proves is that you can beat anything if you grind long enough, which is something any RPG player knows, so it wouldn't really make for an interesting segment. Just know, he continued to batter me around like a ragdoll for so long that eventually even the Peace Council seemed like a more worthwhile use of my time. Speaking of the peace talks, a comment that popped up a lot during the Fallout 4 group video was how do I deal with the companions constantly talking over each other? It's simple really. I don't.
Divine smile on you, friend.
Respect the spirit of High Hrothgar. Do your best to begin the process of achieving lasting peace.
Need something?
Skyrim.
What do you
Who
want,
would like to
little elf?
open the negotiation?
What's our next move?
Yes, let's get down to it. We want control.
Need something?
After my ears stopped bleeding, I made my way for Whiterun to trap Odahviing, and for another first for me, I had to restart the encounter, as on my first attempt, they kept blocking him from making his way to the trap, and would knock him out over and over again. To circumvent this, I just put everyone in time out in the previous room, continued the section like normal, and then as soon as he was caged, I returned and had them all follow me again before I took to the skies of Skuldafn, where, shockingly, they all followed me yet again. I've never felt like more of a side character in one of these runs than I did when I just joined the conga line as they all ran on to kill any and all Draugr in and around the structure. Even the priest and dragons weren't safe from their wrath. Nacrin survived longer than most, but not by much, and after he went down, they descended on the last two dragons like vultures until they both stopped moving. As I predicted, they all followed me into the afterlife, which is a little messed up when you think about it, but it certainly must have thrown Sun for a loop whenever we marched up to him and demanded to enter the Hall of Heroes. This is essentially the equivalent of a bouncer getting jumped by a line of people waiting to get into a nightclub. We then greet the three heroes because why wouldn't we add more to our army, and then begin the second fight with Alduin. This isn't as quick as the first, but it's pretty close to be fair. However, if you know anything about Skyrim runs that involve the player character not actively engaging in combat, then you know exactly what comes next. The final hit must come from the player character, no matter what. Otherwise, Alduin will not die. I tried using a conjuration spell, but that doesn't count sadly, so knowing this was coming, I just bite the bullet, use the unrelenting force shout, killing Alduin, finishing the game and proving no, you cannot beat Skyrim as a group. Sure, you could make the argument that since it's as a group, that I am allowed to contribute to the final kill, but that was never the intention of these runs when I first made the New Vegas video last year. Plus, in the end, I made the rules, so it's up to me to decide whether I succeed or fail, and this time I say I have failed the challenge. That does not mean that it wasn't stupid fun though. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like and you're interested in more challenges in the future. Feel free to subscribe to one of these videos out every week. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.